Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Imagine pulling a humble copper coin from your pocket, the kind you barely notice, and realizing that it carries a story so explosive that it rewrites everything you thought you knew about everyday money. This is the unbelievable legend of the Lincoln penny dated 2000 from the United States. A coin that looks ordinary at first glance yet is whispered about in collector circles as having a face value mythically tied to an astonishing $532 million. A number so shocking it instantly hooks the imagination and sparks the question of how a single cent could ever be linked to such wealth. And the answer begins with the historical weight of the year 2000 itself. A turning point soaked in symbolism, fear, hope, and global attention as the world crossed into a new millennium while worrying about Y2K, technological collapse, and the unknown future, all of which turned even the smallest artifacts of that year into cultural time capsules. And among them the Lincoln penny stands as the most widely circulated yet secretly intriguing piece, minted in massive numbers yet surrounded by rumors of microscopic variations, rare transitional errors, experimental metals, and undocumented strikes that allegedly slipped through quality control during a time when mints were under intense pressure to meet demand, upgrade systems, and modernize production methods, creating the perfect storm for anomalies that collectors dream about. Because in numismatics, rarity is not always about low mintage alone, but about the survival of the unexpected, the undocumented, and the misunderstood, and the 2000 Lincoln penny is said to embody all of these traits at once, with stories circulating of coins struck on wrong planchets, coins with dramatic off-center designs that still show full dates, coins with double dies so bold they appear almost three-dimensional, and coins with unusual surface compositions that hint at experimental alloys tested quietly during the millennium transition, each variation adding layers to the mythos and feeding speculation that somewhere among ordinary pocket change exists a specimen so unique that its value transcends traditional pricing models, pushing it into the realm of legendary sums. And this is where the $532 million figure enters the conversation, not as a casual appraisal but as a symbolic valuation representing what collectors believe the ultimate example of the 2000 Lincoln penny could command if discovered, authenticated, and presented at the right moment in history, because markets are driven not just by metal and condition but by narrative, timing, and emotional resonance. And the story of a millennium-era penny embodying technological anxiety, mass production chaos, and hidden perfection is a narrative powerful enough to ignite bidding wars among elite collectors, museums, and private investors who see coins not merely as currency but as physical records of human moments frozen in metal. And when you examine the Lincoln penny of 2000 more closely, you find familiar design elements that anchor it in tradition, with Abraham Lincoln's profile reminding viewers of continuity and stability, while subtle details in mint marks, spacing, and relief hint at the possibility of deviations so small that only magnification reveals them, deviations that could separate a common cent from a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And collectors often speak about the thrill of searching rolls of pennies from that era, knowing that billions were minted yet convinced that somewhere a handful of extraordinary pieces exist, hiding in drawers, jars, or forgotten bank rolls, waiting for the right eyes to recognize their significance. And the idea that a single coin could be tied to hundreds of millions of dollars is fueled further by past precedents, because numismatic history is filled with examples of coins once dismissed as ordinary later becoming priceless due to unique errors or historical context, reinforcing the belief that value is not fixed but revealed over time. And in the case of the 2000 Lincoln penny, the millennium factor adds a psychological premium, since collectors are drawn to round numbers, symbolic dates, and cultural milestones, making the year itself a magnet for attention, speculation, and myth-making, and every rumor of a rare discovery, every forum post discussing an unusual weight or color, every whispered claim of a secret mint experiment feeds the collective imagination, driving the perceived value higher and higher until the coin transcends reality and becomes legend. And critics may argue that such valuations are exaggerated, that no penny could realistically command such a sum. Yet believers counter that markets have repeatedly proven capable of assigning astronomical prices to singular objects when rarity, story, and desire align perfectly, and the Lincoln penny of 2000 sits precisely at that intersection, because it represents the last penny of one century and the first of another in the public consciousness, even if technically debated, and that symbolic crossover alone gives it an aura that few coins can match. and when combined with the possibility of extreme minting anomalies, the coin transforms into a modern treasure hunt emblem, inspiring people from all walks of life to check their change with renewed curiosity, to weigh their pennies, inspect their edges, and compare details under light, hoping to uncover something extraordinary. And this behavior itself adds to the coin's mystique, because it turns millions of ordinary individuals into participants in a shared search for hidden value. A collective dream that blurs the line between fantasy and possibility, and as stories spread online and through word of mouth, the Lincoln penny of 2000 becomes more than a coin. It becomes a symbol of hope, curiosity, and the belief that life-changing discoveries can still be hiding in plain sight, and the idea of a $532 million penny captures attention not because it is guaranteed but because it is conceivable within the emotional logic of collecting, where uniqueness can outweigh material worth by orders of magnitude. And even if such a coin has not yet surfaced publicly, the anticipation itself fuels the legend, ensuring that the 2000 Lincoln penny remains one of the most talked about modern coins in history, a reminder that value is often a story we agree to believe, reinforced by time, passion, and the endless human desire to find meaning in the smallest objects. And as long as people continue to search their pockets and question the ordinary, the myth of this penny will persist, growing richer with each retelling, each speculation, and each dream of discovery, inviting you to look again at the change you carry every day and consider the possibility that history, fortune, and wonder might be resting quietly in your hand. So if this incredible story sparked your curiosity and made you see everyday coins in a new light, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay connected for more unbelievable stories hidden in plain sight. Next, 1992, D. Lincoln penny. Imagine reaching into your pocket for spare change and realizing that a single ordinary-looking coin could quietly represent one of the most astonishing financial legends ever told. Because the Lincoln penny dated 1992 with a D mint mark from the United States has become the centerpiece of whispered conversations, late-night searches, and viral stories across the world, a humble copper-coated cent that many people once ignored now standing at the heart of a tale valued at an unbelievable face value of $533 million, a number so large that it forces even seasoned collectors to pause, breathe, and reconsider everything they thought they knew about modern coins. Because this story is not just about money but about timing, rarity, history, human error, and the thrill of discovery that turns everyday objects into icons of possibility. When the U.S. Mint produced millions of pennies in 1992, no one imagined that subtle variations, unexpected minting quirks, and extremely limited anomalies would later elevate one specific group of coins into a category reserved for legends, and the 1992 D. Lincoln penny sits at the center of that transformation, quietly carrying Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile on the obverse while hiding a narrative so powerful that it has reshaped conversations about modern coinage. What makes this penny extraordinary is not a single factor but a convergence of circumstances: metal composition tolerances, die alignment variations, microscopic doubling, off, metal strikes, transitional planchets, and extraordinarily rare die pairings, all occurring during a period when mint technology was advancing yet still vulnerable to small imperfections that could escape detection, and those imperfections, once discovered decades later, became the foundation of its massive valuation. Collectors began noticing examples where the lettering appeared sharper yet subtly doubled, where the spacing between letters hinted at experimental dies, and where the strike pressure created relief details that differed from standard circulation coins, and these observations, initially dismissed as minor, eventually gained credibility through repeated finds and expert examination. The Denver Mint, known for high production volumes, was not immune to mistakes, and within that flood of coins, a few 1992 D pennies emerged with characteristics so unusual that they could not be easily categorized, sparking debates that fueled demand and speculation. Some examples reportedly displayed anomalies in the reverse design that suggested prototype elements or unintended die transfers, while others hinted at planchets intended for different denominations, creating weight and thickness variations that only precision scales could reveal. As word spread, collectors began revisiting old jars, drawers, and inherited collections, realizing that modern coins were no longer immune to the magic once reserved for early American currency. And this shift in perception is a Major reason the 1992 D penny achieved such cultural impact. The valuation of $533 million is not simply a price tag attached to one coin but a cumulative narrative representing rarity, historical significance, market psychology, and the mythos that grows when scarcity meets imagination, because in the numismatic world, stories amplify value just as much as metal and mint marks. Auction houses, private collectors, and investment groups reportedly expressed interest in documented examples, and even rumors of sealed collections containing pristine specimens fueled online discussions that reached millions, turning the penny into a viral symbol of hidden wealth. The Lincoln Cent series itself adds emotional gravity to the story, as generations of Americans associate it with childhood savings, simple purchases, and everyday transactions, making the idea that a penny from 1992 could rival the value of masterpieces and skyscrapers both shocking and irresistible. Every scratch, tone, variation, and strike detail became a point of analysis, and forums filled with magnified images, diagrams, and heated debates over authenticity, while experts emphasized the importance of provenance and professional grading to separate true anomalies from wishful thinking. Still, the legend grew, because legends thrive on possibility, and the possibility that a common-looking coin could change a life is powerful enough to capture global attention. Beyond the technical aspects, the 1992 D. Lincoln penny symbolizes a broader truth about history, that moments of transition often produce anomalies, and the early 1990s were a time of subtle shifts in minting processes, materials, and quality control, making it plausible that rare experimental or accidental issues slipped through. These pennies, once spent on candy or dropped into tip jars, unknowingly carried the seeds of extraordinary value, waiting decades for the right moment to be recognized. The market response to such stories reveals how modern collectibles blend nostalgia with speculation, creating a feedback loop where attention drives value and value drives attention, and the 1992 D penny became a perfect case study in that phenomenon. Skeptics argue that valuations reach such heights only in theory, while believers point to private sales, confidential appraisals, and the sheer intensity of demand as evidence that the number reflects more than hype, and this tension only adds fuel to the story. What cannot be denied is the impact, because millions of people who never considered coin collecting suddenly found themselves examining dates and mint marks, learning about die errors, and appreciating the artistry and complexity behind even the smallest denomination. The penny's copper sheen, often dulled by circulation, took on a new glow in the public imagination, representing hope, curiosity, and the thrill of the unexpected. For some, the 1992 D Lincoln penny became a symbol of patience, a reminder that value can remain hidden in plain sight for years, while for others it became a cautionary tale about verification, expertise, and the fine line between rarity and rumor. Yet even caution cannot erase the excitement, because stories like this endure precisely because they invite participation, encouraging people to look closer at the ordinary and ask what else might be overlooked. The $533 million face value attached to this penny stands as one of the most dramatic claims in modern numismatic history, a figure that dwarfs traditional expectations and forces a redefinition of what big money means in the context of coins. Whether viewed as an investment fantasy, a cultural phenomenon, or a genuine treasure hunt, the 1992 D Lincoln penny has already secured its place in history as a viral legend that transformed perceptions of modern currency. It reminds us that history is not always locked away in museums, because sometimes it jingles quietly in a pocket, waiting for the right story to be told. If this story sparked your curiosity and made you look at everyday coins in a new way, stay connected for more incredible discoveries by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing this story with fellow treasure hunters who never want to overlook another penny again. Next, 1999 Lincoln penny. Today, because what you are about to hear sounds impossible, unbelievable, and almost unreal, yet it has captured the imagination of collectors, historians, and everyday people across the world. As we dive into the astonishing story of a 1999 Lincoln penny that is rumored to cost an unimaginable $534 million, a coin that began as simple pocket change but evolved into one of the most talked about legends in modern numismatics. A story fueled by rare errors, extraordinary minting mistakes, mysterious circumstances, and the endless possibilities that surround coins produced during one of the most transitional eras in United States mint history. And as you listen closely, you may start to wonder whether a small copper-colored coin sitting unnoticed in a jar, drawer, or old wallet could actually be hiding a fortune beyond comprehension. The 1999 Lincoln penny was struck at a time when the mint was under enormous pressure to produce billions of coins for circulation. As the economy expanded, vending machines relied heavily on pennies, and public demand for coinage surged, and this massive production environment created the perfect conditions for mistakes. Because speed often overpowered precision, machines ran nonstop, dies wore down faster than expected, and quality control faced unprecedented strain, opening the door for errors that today are whispered about with awe and disbelief. One of the most talked about possibilities behind the staggering $534 million valuation involves a theoretical transitional composition error, where a small number of 1999 pennies may have been struck on experimental or unauthorized planchets, possibly intended for future issues or alternative metal testing. And if such a penny exists, it would represent a breach in mint protocol so significant that it would instantly become a singular artifact of American monetary history, valued not merely for its metal but for the story it tells about secrecy, experimentation, and human oversight. Collectors speculate that these planchets could include unusual alloys, unexpected weights, or even metals never officially released for circulation, and a confirmed example would be unlike anything ever publicly sold, pushing its value into a realm normally reserved for priceless museum pieces. Another layer of mystery comes from die errors, because the Lincoln penny design in 1999 relied on aging master hubs that had been repeatedly modified, repaired, and reused, increasing the likelihood of double dies, misaligned strikes, and ghostly impressions that appear almost supernatural under magnification. And among the most valuable hypothetical errors is an extreme double die obverse where Lincoln's portrait, inscriptions, and date show dramatic separation so clear it can be seen without magnification, a mistake so visually striking that it defies normal mint tolerances and suggests a catastrophic failure in the hubbing process. Such a coin would not only be rare but historically important, serving as physical evidence of a breakdown in one of the most controlled manufacturing systems in the world. Then there is the concept of a mule error, a mistake where two mismatched dies are paired together, and in the case of the 1999 penny, collectors imagine the impossible, a Lincoln obverse struck with a reverse intended for a completely different denomination, year, or even country, an error so extreme that it would challenge official mint records and raise questions about internal security, die storage, and oversight, and if such a mule were authenticated, it would likely never be duplicated, instantly placing it among the most valuable coins ever known. Off-center strikes, broad strikes, and multi-struck errors also play a role in this legendary valuation, because while these errors are known in many coins, an extreme example combined with pristine condition and a unique die pairing could elevate a 1999 penny from curiosity to once-in-a-lifetime discovery, especially if the coin displays multiple errors layered together, creating a chaotic yet mesmerizing snapshot of mechanical failure frozen in copper. Another possibility often discussed involves missing or altered mint marks, particularly pennies struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally carries no mint mark, but speculation persists about experimental mint mark placements, filled dies, or ghost impressions that appear only under advanced imaging, suggesting that certain 1999 pennies may carry hidden anomalies detectable only with modern technology, adding an element of modern discovery to an old coin. Surface anomalies also fuel the legend, because improper annealing, contaminated metal batches, or exposure to foreign substances during striking can produce unusual textures, colors, and patterns that defy conventional explanation. And while many such coins are dismissed as damage, a confirmed mint origin anomaly from 1999 would become a forensic puzzle that experts would study for decades. The historical context of 1999 further amplifies the intrigue, because it was the final year before the turn of the millennium, a time when the mint was preparing for major changes, including new designs, new compositions, and increased public scrutiny, and this atmosphere of transition is exactly when the most fascinating mistakes tend to occur, as systems are updated, protocols shift, and human error slips through unnoticed. Rumors persist of internal mint tests conducted during this period, involving alternative metals or strike pressures, and while official confirmation remains elusive, even the possibility that a 1999 penny could be linked to such experiments is enough to send collectors into a frenzy. Condition plays a critical role in the hypothetical $534 million valuation, because a coin of this magnitude would need to survive in nearly perfect state, untouched by circulation, oxidation, or cleaning, its surfaces original, its details sharp, and its story unaltered, a requirement that narrows the field to perhaps a single surviving example, making it not just rare but essentially unique. Provenance would elevate the value even further, especially if the coin could be traced back to an original mint employee, sealed bag, or documented release anomaly, creating a paper trail that transforms speculation into legend-backed reality. Authentication would be a global event, involving the most respected grading services, metallurgists, historians, and legal experts, each contributing analysis that confirms the coin's authenticity beyond doubt. And once verified, the market dynamics would shift dramatically, because the value would no longer be determined by typical auction results, but by private negotiations among elite collectors, museums, and institutions willing to pay any price to own a piece of history that can never be replaced. The $534 million figure itself reflects not just rarity but symbolism, representing the idea that a humble penny can transcend its face value and become a cultural icon, a reminder that mistakes, when viewed through the lens of time, can become treasures, and that the ordinary objects we overlook may carry extraordinary stories. This story also resonates because it invites participation, encouraging people to search through their change, revisit old collections, and look more closely at what they already own, transforming everyday curiosity into the thrill of possibility. Even skeptics acknowledge that while such a coin may never publicly surface, the discussion itself has reshaped how collectors view modern pennies, proving that value is not limited to ancient gold or silver, but can emerge from recent history when circumstances align. The legend of the 1999 Lincoln penny, valued at $534 million, continues to grow because it blends fact with mystery, documented errors with theoretical possibilities, and hard science with human imagination, creating a narrative that refuses to fade. And as long as people keep looking, studying, and believing, the door remains open for discovery. Somewhere, perhaps in an old roll, a forgotten jar, or a dusty box, a penny may be waiting, silent and unassuming, holding within it a story that could redefine what we believe about money, mistakes, and the hidden potential of the smallest things. And if you find this kind of story fascinating, inspiring, and thrilling, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us, because the next incredible coin story could be even closer than you think. Next, 1986 D. Lincoln penny. Today we are diving deep into one of the most unbelievable and conversation-starting stories in modern coin collecting history, the legendary 1986 D. Lincoln penny that has stunned collectors, sparked debates, fueled dreams, and earned a jaw-dropping reputation for allegedly reaching a staggering value of $535 million due to a rare combination of errors, mistakes, and extraordinary possibilities that transformed a simple copper-plated zinc cent into a symbol of unimaginable wealth, mystery, and chance. At first glance, the 1986 D. Lincoln penny looks ordinary, the kind of coin you might toss into a jar, lose in a couch cushion, or spend without a second thought. Yet within this unassuming design lies a tale that proves how tiny details, overlooked imperfections, and minting anomalies can elevate a common coin into a legendary artifact that collectors worldwide dream of discovering. Because 1986 was a transitional year for U.S. coinage, a period when the mint was still refining its processes for producing copper-plated zinc pennies, and that transitional chaos opened the door for mistakes that should never have happened but did, creating a perfect storm of numismatic intrigue. The Denver Mint, marked by the small but powerful D mint mark, produced millions of pennies that year, yet a microscopic fraction of them may contain extraordinary errors that push their theoretical value into the hundreds of millions when combined, documented, authenticated, and placed into the feverish imagination of the collecting world, where rarity, condition, story, and possibility collide. One of the most talked about factors behind the astonishing valuation of the 1986 D. Lincoln penny is the potential existence of transitional planchet errors, where a penny may have been struck on the wrong metal composition, possibly a leftover copper planchet or an experimental alloy that slipped through quality control, because even though most 1986 pennies were intended to be copper-plated zinc, The presence of a solid copper example would defy official records and ignite a numismatic firestorm, especially if verified with precise weight, metallurgical testing, and professional grading. Another massive contributor to the coin's legendary status is the possibility of dramatic double die errors, particularly on the obverse where Abraham Lincoln's portrait, date, and inscriptions could show strong, unmistakable doubling visible to the naked eye, not the minor. Machine doubling often dismissed by experts, but true hub doubling that creates a bold, separated image effect, turning ordinary lettering into something that looks alive, vibrating with value and historical importance. Collectors obsess over these doubled features because they represent a moment when the mint's hubbing process failed, freezing a mistake in metal that cannot be replicated, and when such an error appears on a coin from a transitional year like 1986D, its desirability multiplies exponentially. Then there is the haunting allure of off-metal strikes, where a 1986D Lincoln penny might have been struck on a planchet intended for another denomination, such as a dime or even a foreign coin blank, resulting in a piece that defies expectations in size, weight, and appearance, a coin that feels wrong in the hand yet thrilling to the mind, because such errors are tangible proof that the minting process, despite its precision, is still vulnerable to human and mechanical oversight. Add to that the possibility of extreme off-center strikes, broad strikes without collars, or coins struck through foreign material, such as grease, cloth fibers, or metal fragments, and the narrative grows richer, layering mistake upon mistake until the coin becomes a living museum of errors frozen in time. The staggering valuation attached to this 1986D Lincoln penny legend also hinges on condition, because error coins that survive in near-perfect or uncirculated states are exponentially rarer than those found worn and damaged, and when an already rare error appears with sharp details, original luster, and minimal contact marks, it crosses an invisible threshold into the realm of museum-quality artifacts, the kind of pieces that wealthy collectors, private institutions, and investors might compete for fiercely, driving theoretical prices into previously unthinkable territory. Another layer of intrigue lies in the potential for dramatic die breaks, cuds, or retained cuds that alter Lincoln's portrait or the rim of the coin in visually stunning ways, because large, well-placed die breaks can look almost sculptural, creating raised blobs of metal that tell a story of stress, fatigue, and failure within the die itself. And when such features appear on a coin already surrounded by myths of rarity and value, they amplify its mystique. There is also the whispered possibility of experimental strikes, test pieces, or improperly released samples that were never meant to leave the mint, coins that exist in a gray area between official production and internal testing. And while such pieces are extraordinarily difficult to prove, their mere suggestion fuels speculation and elevates the 1986D Lincoln penny into almost mythical status, because collectors are not only buying metal but buying stories, mysteries, and the thrill of owning something that challenges official history. The idea of a single penny being worth $535 million may sound unbelievable, even absurd. Yet in the world of high-end numismatics, value is not determined by face value or even metal content but by a complex equation of rarity, demand, provenance, condition, and narrative. And when a coin sits at the intersection of all these factors, its price can soar into realms that feel surreal. The 1986D Lincoln penny story also thrives because it invites participation, encouraging people to search their change, examine old jars, and look more closely at what they once ignored, turning everyday life into a treasure hunt where hope glimmers with every copper-colored disc. The psychological power of this story cannot be overstated because it taps into a universal fantasy, the idea that extraordinary wealth might be hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right eyes to notice a subtle doubling, an unusual weight, or an odd texture that others overlooked. Skeptics argue that such extreme valuations are speculative, built on hypotheticals and perfect storm scenarios, yet even skepticism fuels the legend, because debate keeps the story alive, discussed, analyzed, and shared across communities, videos, forums, and conversations, ensuring that the 1986D Lincoln penny remains etched in collective memory. The Denver Mint's role adds another dimension, as coins from different mints carry different reputations, And Denver's massive output, combined with transitional pressures, makes it a fertile ground for rare anomalies that slip through unnoticed, especially during years when composition changes and production demands collide. The emotional pull of Abraham Lincoln's image also plays a subtle role, because Lincoln pennies are deeply ingrained in American culture, symbolizing history, unity, and everyday commerce, and transforming such a familiar icon into a vessel of extreme value creates a powerful contrast that captivates audiences. Each potential error on the 1986 D penny acts like a chapter in an unfolding story, from doubled dies to wrong planchets, from dramatic die breaks to pristine preservation, from accidental releases to theoretical prototypes. And when these chapters stack together, they form a narrative so compelling that collectors are willing to imagine values that stretch far beyond traditional benchmarks. The phrase "worth big money" barely captures the emotional impact of attaching a $535 million figure to a penny, because it challenges assumptions about wealth, worth, and attention to detail, reminding us that value often hides where we least expect it. The legend persists because it is not just about a coin but about possibility itself. The idea that knowledge, curiosity, and patience can turn the mundane into the magnificent. Whether such a coin has already been found, sits quietly in a forgotten collection, or remains undiscovered in circulation, the story of the 1986 D. Lincoln penny continues to inspire, educate, and electrify, urging viewers to look closer, think deeper, and never underestimate the power of small things, because within the tiniest errors and mistakes can lie the biggest stories, the greatest excitement, and the most astonishing dreams of all. Next, 1989 Lincoln penny. Today, as we dive into one of the most astonishing and conversation-stopping stories in modern coin lore, a story that sounds unbelievable at first yet continues to ignite curiosity, debate, and excitement across the collecting world, because today we are talking about the 1989 Lincoln penny, a humble 1-cent coin that many people remember seeing in pocket change, school lunch lines, and old jars at home. Yet one particular version of this penny has been whispered about with a staggering valuation reaching as high as $536 million due to a unique combination of minting errors, production mistakes, and extraordinary possibilities that elevate it from everyday copper-plated zinc into legendary status. And as we explore this story together, keep in mind that the magic of rare coins often lies not in what they were meant to be, but in what they accidentally became. The 1989 Lincoln penny was produced in massive quantities by the United States Mint, struck primarily in copper-plated zinc with the familiar Lincoln portrait on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that had been in use for decades, and under normal circumstances these coins are worth exactly 1 cent, sometimes 2 or 3 cents in uncirculated condition. Yet within such enormous production runs lies the possibility of catastrophic mistakes, subtle die errors, transitional anomalies, and experimental mishaps, all of which can transform an ordinary object into an object of mythic value. And this is where the story of the $536,001,989 penny begins. One of the most discussed possibilities involves the idea of a wrong planchet strike, a situation in which a penny is struck on a metal blank intended for a completely different denomination or composition. And while such errors are rare, they are documented throughout U.S. minting history, including cents struck on dime planchets, foreign coin planchets, or experimental alloys. And if a 1989 penny were discovered struck on a solid copper planchet from an earlier era, or on a transitional, experimental metal never officially released, the uniqueness alone could propel it into the highest tier of numismatic value, especially if authenticated and preserved in pristine condition. Another powerful factor contributing to the extraordinary valuation claim is the possibility of a double die obverse or reverse of extreme magnitude. Not the minor doubling often seen under magnification, but a dramatic, naked-eye visible doubling affecting Lincoln's portrait, the date, the word liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust," because such bold double dies are among the most sought-after errors in all of coin collecting. And if a previously unknown 1989 example surfaced with massive doubling combined with other errors, its value could rise exponentially. Adding further intrigue is the potential for a mule error, one of the rarest and most fascinating mistakes in minting, where the obverse die of one coin is paired with the reverse die of another, creating a hybrid that should never exist. And while mules are exceptionally rare, their confirmed existence in other years proves that the impossible sometimes slips through the cracks, And a 1989 Lincoln penny mule involving an incompatible reverse design would instantly become a once-in-a-generation discovery. Die clashes also play a role in this story, especially severe clashes where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, transferring parts of each design onto the other. And if such a clash were extreme, repeated, and combined with other errors such as off-center strikes or misaligned dies, the resulting coin could display ghostly images, distorted lettering, and dramatic visual chaos that collectors find irresistible. Another layer of mystery comes from the zinc core used in modern pennies, because improper plating can result in exposed zinc, missing copper layers, or bubbles and blisters beneath the surface. And while these are often considered minor errors, a perfect storm of plating failure combined with structural anomalies, such as incorrect thickness or weight deviations far beyond tolerance, could indicate a deeper mint malfunction that elevates the coin's significance. Weight anomalies themselves are a crucial diagnostic tool, because a 1989 penny that weighs significantly more or less than the standard could signal a wrong metal composition, a missing core, or even a solid copper strike, and such deviations, when proven authentic, are catnip for high-end collectors and institutions. Then there is the idea of experimental strikes, coins created during testing phases that were never meant to leave the mint, and while official records may not always confirm such experiments, history shows that trial pieces sometimes escape, intentionally or accidentally, and if a 1989 penny were linked to an undocumented experimental alloy or production test, the combination of mystery, rarity, and controversy could push its theoretical value into unprecedented territory. Condition, of course, cannot be ignored, because even the rarest error loses value if damaged, and a 1989 penny graded at the absolute top of the scale, with full luster, razor-sharp details, and flawless surfaces, would stand apart from any circulated example, and when rarity meets perfection, the market responds with awe and open checkbooks. Provenance also magnifies value, because a coin with a traceable history, perhaps discovered in an original mint bag, a sealed government set, or an old collection untouched for decades, carries a narrative that collectors crave, and a compelling story can be just as powerful as the metal itself. The staggering figure of $536 million is not merely about metal and mistakes. It represents the idea of a singular object, one that combines multiple extraordinary errors into a single surviving example, creating something that defies probability. And in numismatics, probability is everything, because rarity is not just about low numbers, it is about near impossibility. Skeptics often question such valuations, and rightly so, because the coin market is grounded in evidence, authentication, and demand. Yet history has repeatedly shown that when a truly unique piece emerges, traditional price ceilings can be shattered, especially when wealthy collectors, museums, and investors compete for ownership of a one-of-a-kind artifact. The Lincoln cent holds a special place in American culture, symbolizing everyday life, honesty, and endurance. And when such a familiar object is transformed by error into something extraordinary, the emotional resonance amplifies its appeal. The possibility that a 1989 penny could exist with multiple catastrophic errors, flawless preservation, and a mysterious origin is what fuels the legend, inspiring people to check their change, search old rolls, and look twice at coins they once ignored. Stories circulate of collectors finding incredible errors in unlikely places, from garage sales to inherited jars, reinforcing the idea that hidden treasures may still be out there, waiting for the right eyes to notice them. Authentication would be the final and most critical step, involving advanced metallurgical testing, die analysis, and expert grading, because the line between fantasy and fortune is drawn by proof, and only a coin that withstands rigorous scrutiny can command such a jaw-dropping valuation. Even then, the market ultimately decides value, driven by desire, competition, and the belief that owning such a coin is owning a piece of history that can never be replicated. The 1989 Lincoln penny story captures the imagination because it blends the mundane with the miraculous, reminding us that mistakes, often seen as flaws, can sometimes become pathways to greatness. And in the world of coins, a single error can echo across decades, transforming a cent into a legend. As collectors continue to hunt, debate, and dream, the idea of a $536 million penny remains a powerful symbol of possibility, urging everyone to slow down, look closer, and remember that even the smallest objects can hold the biggest surprises. And if you enjoyed exploring this incredible story and want to keep uncovering more hidden treasures and unbelievable coin legends, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us, because the next extraordinary discovery might already be in your pocket. Next, 2012 D. Lincoln Penny. We deep dive into one of the most unbelievable stories in modern coin history, because today we are exploring how an ordinary-looking 2012 D. Lincoln Penny, a coin most people would overlook or spend without a second thought, has been linked in legend, speculation, collector fascination, and extreme numismatic theory to a jaw-dropping valuation of $537 million, a figure that sounds impossible until you understand how rare minting errors, production anomalies, human mistakes, metal composition, irregularities, undocumented test strikes, and 1 in a billion coincidences can combine to transform a single cent into an object of obsession, mystery, and potentially historic wealth. To truly appreciate why this penny has captured imaginations around the world, we must begin with the fact that the Denver Mint in 2012 was producing billions of Lincoln cents under intense pressure for speed and efficiency, using high-speed presses, automated blank feeders, laser-inspected dies, and zinc planchets plated with copper, yet no minting system is perfect, and when errors slip through unnoticed, especially during massive production runs, the resulting coins can become some of the most valuable artifacts in American numismatics, particularly when multiple errors stack together on a single piece, creating what collectors call a compound or hybrid error. And this is where the 2012 D. Penny enters legendary territory. One of the most discussed possibilities involves an extreme double die obverse combined with die deterioration doubling, where Lincoln's profile, the inscriptions "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date show dramatic separation, thickening, and ghosting, but unlike common machine doubling, true double dies originate during the hubbing process when dies receive misaligned impressions, meaning every coin struck from that die carries the same doubling, and if such a double die went undetected long enough, only to later be intentionally destroyed or quietly pulled from service, the surviving examples could be extraordinarily rare, especially if the doubling was so bold that it challenged existing classifications and hinted at a unique hubbing error not seen in other years. Another layer of intrigue comes from the possibility of a wrong planchet error, where a 2012 decent could have been struck on a foreign blank, an experimental alloy, or even a transitional metal intended for another denomination, such as a dime, a foreign coin, or a test composition never officially approved, and while skeptics argue that modern mint controls prevent such errors, history repeatedly proves otherwise, as seen in famous wrong metal cents and nickels that escaped detection despite advanced safeguards. And if a 2012 D penny were struck on an unrecorded alloy, perhaps heavier, magnetic, or compositionally unique, it would immediately trigger scientific analysis, X-ray fluorescence testing, and intense scrutiny from grading services, potentially confirming that the coin represents a previously unknown experimental strike, a discovery that alone could justify an astronomical valuation. Beyond metal and die errors, collectors have speculated about extreme off-center strikes paired with broad strikes, where the collar fails and the planchet shifts, producing a coin with missing design elements, distorted rims, and an irregular shape, yet still showing a full or nearly full date and mint mark, a combination that dramatically increases desirability. And when such physical distortions are paired with rotated dies, where the obverse and reverse are misaligned by significant degrees, sometimes even approaching 180 degrees, the resulting coin becomes visually stunning and mechanically fascinating, illustrating multiple points of failure in the minting process that somehow converged at the exact moment this penny was struck. Adding to the mystique is the theory of a mule error, one of the rarest and most coveted mistakes in coinage, where mismatched dies from different denominations or designs are accidentally paired together. And while no officially confirmed 2012 decent mule has been publicly documented, numismatic lore thrives on the possibility that one could exist, perhaps showing a Lincoln cent obverse with an unexpected reverse design, a partial memorial, a ghost image of another denomination, or even an experimental reverse never intended for circulation. And if such a coin were authenticated, it would instantly become one of the most important modern mint errors ever discovered. Surface anomalies also play a critical role in this narrative, because improper plating, incomplete bonding between the copper layer and zinc core, or environmental contamination during production can cause peeling, bubbling, cracking, or missing copper surfaces, Yet, when these defects occur in unusual patterns that align with strike pressure and die features, they can be distinguished from post-mint damage and recognized as legitimate mint errors, increasing both rarity and value, especially when paired with other anomalies on the same coin. The $537 million figure associated with this 2012 penny is not just about physical errors, however, but also about provenance, narrative, and uniqueness, because in the world of elite collecting, the story behind a coin can elevate it beyond metal and mechanics, transforming it into a cultural artifact, and if a single example were discovered with documented circulation history, perhaps found in a sealed bankroll, a mint bag, or a long-forgotten collection, and then verified through metallurgical testing, dye analysis, and archival research to be the only known specimen of its kind, the bidding war among museums, private collectors, investment funds, and even governments could push its value into territory normally reserved for world-famous paintings or historical manuscripts. Condition further amplifies this potential, because modern coins with dramatic errors are often damaged through circulation before anyone recognizes their importance. Yet if a 2012 penny with multiple confirmed errors survived in near-perfect or mint-state condition, showing sharp details, original luster, and minimal handling, it would defy the odds and command an almost unimaginable premium, especially if grading services assigned it a top-tier designation and highlighted its uniqueness in population reports. Another fascinating angle involves intentional sabotage or unauthorized experimentation, a controversial topic rarely discussed openly but whispered about in numismatic circles, where a rogue mint employee or technician might have tested unconventional setups, materials, or alignments, creating coins never meant to leave the facility. And while such actions would violate strict regulations, history shows that unusual coins sometimes emerge without clear official explanations, leaving collectors to piece together clues decades later. And a 2012 penny exhibiting characteristics inconsistent with standard production could reignite debates about how much we truly know about modern mint operations. The psychological impact of such a discovery cannot be underestimated, because modern collectors often assume that the era of legendary rarities ended long ago. Yet the emergence of a modern cent valued at hundreds of millions would shatter that belief, proving that treasure can still hide in plain sight, in pocket change, coin jars, or forgotten drawers, waiting for someone with curiosity and knowledge to recognize its significance. This story also highlights the importance of education, magnification, and patience in coin collecting, because many rare errors are subtle at first glance, revealing themselves only under close inspection, proper lighting, and an understanding of minting processes, and the idea that a single penny could pay off debts, change families' lives, or rewrite numismatic textbooks fuels the passion of collectors worldwide. As this legend continues to circulate, enthusiasts search through rolls, scrutinize their collections, and debate online forums, sharing images, theories, and hopes, each wondering whether the next great discovery could be sitting just inches away, and whether the mythical 2012 penny valued at $537 million might one day be confirmed, certified, and displayed as the most valuable modern coin ever known. If this story has sparked your curiosity, inspired you to check your change, or deepened your appreciation for the hidden complexity behind everyday money, then stay connected with this channel, because the world of rare coins is full of surprises, and the next unbelievable discovery could be closer than you think. So if you enjoy exploring stories where history, chance, and value collide, make sure to like the video, subscribe for more fascinating numismatic content, and share this story with fellow collectors who might still be holding a fortune without even realizing it. Next, 2017 Lincoln Penny. Today, as we dive into one of the most fascinating and conversation-starting stories in modern American coin history, a story that has collectors, casual change checkers, and even skeptics leaning closer to their screens, because today we are talking about the legendary 2017 Lincoln Penny, a coin that many people once ignored as spare change but that is now rumored, discussed, and debated as a coin that could cost as much as $538 million due to a remarkable combination of minting errors, production mistakes, and rare possibilities that challenge everything we think we know about pocket change. And as you settle in, imagine this simple copper-plated zinc cent, struck at the Denver Mint in 2017, quietly slipping into circulation while carrying within it the potential to rewrite numismatic history. The 2017 Lincoln Penny was produced during a time of intense demand for circulating coinage, and high production pressure often leads to subtle and sometimes dramatic errors. And it is within this environment that the seeds of extraordinary value were planted, because errors are not merely flaws. They are documented moments where the minting process deviated from perfection, creating coins that exist outside standard expectations. And when multiple deviations occur together on a single coin, the result can be something so rare that assigning a price becomes almost mythical. One of the most discussed errors tied to the 2017 penny is the possibility of a dramatic off-metal strike, a situation in which the coin was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or even another metal composition entirely. And if a 2017 Lincoln cent were struck on a planchet meant for a foreign coin, a silver alloy, or an experimental metal, the value would not merely rise, it would explode, because such an error would represent a breakdown at multiple stages of quality control, creating a coin that should never have existed in the first place. Another powerful factor contributing to the staggering $538 million valuation rumor is the potential for a double die obverse or reverse error of unprecedented clarity and strength, far beyond the minor doubling commonly seen on machine-doubled coins, because a true double die is created when the die itself is impressed more than once at slightly different angles. And if a 2017 penny exists with extreme doubling on Lincoln's profile, the date, the mint mark, or inscriptions like "In God We Trust" or "United States of America," it would instantly become one of the most important error coins of the 21st century. Collectors place immense value on visibility and drama, and a bold, naked-eye double die on a modern penny would shatter assumptions that such errors are confined to older eras, proving that even in the age of advanced minting technology, mistakes of historic magnitude can still slip through. The mint mark itself, the D of Denver, opens another door to mystery and value, because mint mark anomalies have long fascinated numismatists, and a misplaced, repunched, doubled, or even missing mint mark on a coin that should clearly bear one can elevate it from curiosity to legend, especially when combined with other errors on the same piece. Imagine a 2017 penny with a doubled mint mark, a rotated die, and an off-center strike all occurring together. This stacking of errors is what fuels the narrative of a coin reaching a valuation as astonishing as $538 million. Because rarity is exponential, not additive, and each additional verified error multiplies the coin's uniqueness. Another critical element is the possibility of a mule error, one of the rarest and most valuable mistakes in minting, where the obverse die of one coin is paired with the reverse die of another, and while such errors are extraordinarily rare, they are not impossible. And if a 2017 Lincoln obverse were somehow paired with an incorrect reverse, such as a design from another denomination or an experimental die, the resulting coin would be a once-in-a-generation discovery, instantly commanding international attention and unprecedented valuations. Surface anomalies also play a major role in the story of this coin, because improper alloy mixing, contamination, or plating errors can create visual effects that are impossible to replicate intentionally, leading to coins with unusual coloration, bubbling, peeling, or texture. And if these anomalies are proven to be mint-caused rather than post-mint damage, they become powerful evidence of a genuine error worthy of serious consideration. The 2017 penny is also rumored to exist with extreme die cracks, retained cuds, or even massive die breaks that distort the design so dramatically that the coin becomes a sculptural artifact rather than a simple cent. And while minor die cracks are common, major structural failures on a die indicate the very end of its usable life, meaning only a handful of coins could have been struck before the problem was noticed, if it was noticed at all. Rotation errors further deepen the intrigue, because a coin struck with the obverse and reverse misaligned by a significant degree transforms an everyday object into something mechanically fascinating. And when rotation reaches dramatic angles, it signals a serious alignment failure within the press, something that modern minting is designed to prevent, making such errors both rare and highly prized. Another layer of value speculation comes from the possibility of a wrong year or transitional error, where dies, planchets, or compositions intended for another year were accidentally used in 2017, and transitional errors have historically produced some of the most valuable coins ever sold, because they capture a moment of change and confusion within the minting process, freezing it in metal. Condition also plays a critical role, because for a coin to reach the mythical $538 million mark, it would likely need to exist in near-perfect or uncirculated condition, preserving every detail of its error with sharp clarity, untouched by wear, scratches, or environmental damage, and such pristine survival in circulation is itself a miracle. Provenance, the documented history of a coin, cannot be overlooked either, because a coin with a clear chain of custody, professional authentication, and recognition by major grading services gains legitimacy, and legitimacy is essential when values climb into the hundreds of millions, as buyers and institutions demand certainty. The psychological component of numismatics also fuels these valuations, because coins are not just metal, they are stories, and the story of a modern penny defying its 1-cent face value to become a $500 million artifact resonates deeply with collectors who see themselves as treasure hunters in an ordinary world. The 2017 D. Lincoln penny story taps into the universal hope that something extraordinary might be hiding in plain sight, that a coin dropped into a jar or tucked into a wallet could hold life-changing potential, and this emotional resonance amplifies demand and speculation. Market dynamics further contribute to the value narrative, because as wealth concentrates and alternative investments gain popularity, ultra-rare coins become symbols of exclusivity and cultural capital, attracting not only collectors but also investors, museums, and private institutions seeking tangible assets with historical significance. Media attention, social sharing, and online discussion can rapidly elevate a coin from obscurity to legend, and once a narrative takes hold, it can drive values to astonishing heights, especially when the coin in question is modern, accessible, and theoretically still discoverable. The possibility that more than one example exists, or that others remain undiscovered, adds urgency and excitement, encouraging people to search their change, buy rolls, and examine pennies with renewed focus, further cementing the coin's place in popular culture. At the heart of the 2017 D. Lincoln penny's alleged $538 million valuation is the convergence of rarity, error complexity, condition, provenance, and story, each reinforcing the other in a feedback loop of fascination and desire. And while skepticism is healthy and verification is essential, history has shown that today's unbelievable coin stories can become tomorrow's auction headlines. Whether the ultimate value ever reaches such a staggering figure or remains a symbol of what is possible, the lesson remains powerful. Pay attention to the details, because the smallest differences can carry the greatest weight, and the humble penny, often dismissed and overlooked, continues to prove that in the world of numismatics, even 1 cent can be priceless when it carries the marks of a mistake that history will never repeat. Next, 1998, D. Lincoln penny. Where curiosity meets history and ordinary pocket change transforms into extraordinary stories, because today we are diving deep into one of the most talked about modern coin legends, the 1998 D. Lincoln penny that has captured imaginations with whispers of a staggering $539 million valuation. A figure that sounds unbelievable yet continues to fuel fascination among collectors, treasure hunters, and everyday people checking their spare change. And as we begin this journey together, imagine holding a simple copper-colored coin that appears ordinary at first glance, yet hides a complex web of minting errors, production mistakes, historical coincidences, and rare possibilities that together create a narrative so compelling it feels almost mythical. Because the Lincoln penny has always been more than loose change. It is a symbol of American history, industry, and craftsmanship, and the 1998 D issue sits at a crossroads of technology and tradition. Produced during a time when the United States Mint was balancing high-speed production demands with evolving quality control methods, a combination that allowed subtle but dramatic anomalies to slip through. And it is within these anomalies that the story of immense value begins. Because while millions of 1998 D pennies were struck at the Denver Mint and released into circulation, only a microscopic fraction may exhibit the precise convergence of errors that elevate one coin from face value to legendary status. Errors that include double dies, off-metal strikes, transitional planchet mistakes, misaligned dies, incomplete clad bonding, and microscopic variations in design elements that can only occur under very specific conditions. And when collectors talk about the $539 million figure, they are not speaking of an average example pulled from a drawer. They are describing a hypothetical pinnacle specimen, a perfect storm coin where multiple rare errors exist simultaneously and remain preserved in near-flawless condition, because condition is just as critical as the error itself, and a mint-state coin with sharp details, original luster, and no post-mint damage multiplies desirability exponentially, especially when paired with errors that challenge what experts thought was possible for that year. And one of the most discussed mistakes tied to the 1998 D penny involves double die obverse characteristics, where the doubling appears not as simple machine chatter but as true hub doubling created during the die-making process, resulting in clear, separated impressions in Lincoln's profile, the date, or the inscriptions, a feature that instantly signals rarity to experienced eyes. Yet what makes the 1998 D case unique is the speculation that a previously undocumented double die variety may exist, one that escaped cataloging due to its subtlety and the sheer volume of coins produced, and this possibility alone keeps collectors searching, because discovering a new major variety can rewrite price guides and ignite bidding wars, but doubling is only one chapter in this story, because there is also the allure of off-metal errors, pennies struck on planchets intended for other denominations or even foreign coins, a mistake that can occur when leftover blanks from previous runs remain in the machinery, and if a 1998 D penny were struck on a silver-colored dime planchet, a copper-nickel alloy, or an experimental alloy used for testing, the weight, color, and sound would immediately differ, creating an unmistakable rarity, and such transitional errors are especially prized when they occur near changes in metal composition or production processes. As the late 1990s represented a period of ongoing experimentation and refinement at the mint. And then there is the mystery of misaligned dies and broad strikes, where the coin's design appears off-center or stretched beyond its normal boundaries, yet for a coin to reach mythical valuation, the misalignment would need to be extreme, visually dramatic and paired with other errors, because value compounds when anomalies stack rather than stand alone, and collectors are drawn to coins that tell a story at a glance, coins that look wrong in a way that is undeniably fascinating. And another factor often discussed is the possibility of a mule error, where mismatched dies are paired together, such as a Lincoln obverse combined with an unintended reverse design, a mistake so rare that it challenges logistical norms, yet history proves mules can and do occur, and if a 1998 D penny mule were confirmed, especially one involving an unexpected denomination or proof reverse, it would instantly become one of the most important modern U.S. coins ever discovered. And this is where speculation intersects with hope, because while no such example has been publicly authenticated at this level, the absence of proof does not eliminate possibility, and possibility is the fuel that drives treasure hunting. But beyond physical errors, the narrative of value also involves timing, because the late 1990s marked the rise of online auctions, digital photography, and global collector communication, meaning that discoveries could spread rapidly and values could escalate faster than ever before, and a single sensational find could trigger international attention, private offers, and sealed negotiations far from public view, which is why rumors of privately held ultra-rare coins persist, feeding legends like the $539 million 1998 D penny. And another layer of intrigue comes from die deterioration and clash errors, where worn or damaged dies leave ghostly impressions, cracks, or raised lines across the coin's surface, features that are usually seen as minor but can become extraordinary when they form unique patterns, especially if they intersect key design elements like Lincoln's eye, the date, or the mint mark, because collectors often value visual impact as much as technical rarity, and a coin that appears almost haunted by its own production process can captivate even those new to numismatics. And speaking of the mint mark, the D itself holds importance, because Denver mint varieties are sometimes overshadowed by Philadelphia or San Francisco issues, making a dramatic Denver error even more surprising and desirable, as it defies expectations and expands the known range of mint behavior, and condition again circles back into focus, because a coin that somehow avoided circulation, retained sharp edges, and preserved its original surfaces despite being an error suggests it may have been noticed early, set aside, and protected, or perhaps overlooked entirely in a mint bag and only discovered decades later. A scenario that adds romance to the find, and while skeptics rightly point out that astronomical valuations require verified sales and documented provenance, the numismatic market has shown time and again that unique objects can command unprecedented sums when the right buyer meets the right story, and in that sense, the $539 million figure represents not just monetary value but symbolic value, a representation of the ultimate modern coin discovery, the kind that transcends hobby circles and enters mainstream conversation, inspiring people to look twice at their change. And this inspiration is powerful because it connects everyday life to hidden history, reminding us that mistakes, often seen as flaws, can become sources of wonder and worth. And as collectors examine 1998 D pennies under magnification, weighing them, measuring them, and comparing them to known standards, they participate in a collective search for something extraordinary, a search driven by curiosity as much as profit, and whether or not a single 1998 Lincoln penny ever officially sells for $539 million. The legend itself has already created value by energizing the community, educating new enthusiasts, and preserving the importance of careful observation. Because even if the ultimate prize remains undiscovered, countless smaller discoveries along the way enrich the field, and perhaps the true value lies in the journey, the shared excitement, and the reminder that history is not only found in museums but also in pockets, jars, and forgotten drawers, waiting patiently for someone to notice. And as we reflect on this story, it becomes clear that the 1998 Lincoln penny stands as a symbol of possibility, where industrial precision meets human error, and where a 1-cent coin can ignite million-dollar dreams, encouraging everyone watching to keep learning, keep searching, and keep appreciating the remarkable potential hidden in the most ordinary places. Next, 1976 Lincoln penny. Today's deep dive into one of the most astonishing and mysterious stories in American coin collecting. A story that turns an everyday object into a legendary treasure. Because in this episode we are exploring the unbelievable idea that a 1976 Lincoln penny could be worth an eye-watering $540 million due to a rare convergence of minting errors, historical timing, and once-in-a-lifetime possibilities that have captured the imagination of collectors around the world. And as we begin, picture the millions of pennies struck in 1976 during America's bicentennial era, a year saturated with patriotic symbolism, massive production numbers, and intense pressure on U.S. mint facilities, conditions that created the perfect storm for mistakes to slip through unnoticed. Because while most people associate 1976 with the special bicentennial quarters, half dollars, and dollars, the Lincoln cent continued its quiet production. And within that routine process, extraordinary anomalies could occur. Anomalies that transform a simple copper coin into a hypothetical artifact of incalculable value, beginning with the possibility of an off-metal strike, where a 1976 Lincoln penny may have been accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination, such as a dime, quarter, or even a foreign coin blank, a mistake that would require multiple safeguards to fail simultaneously, making such an error almost mythical in rarity. And if such a penny were struck on a wrong metal like silver, aluminum, or a transitional experimental alloy, its weight, sound, and appearance would immediately separate it from ordinary cents, creating a specimen that would be unique or one of only a handful known. A condition that alone could justify extraordinary valuations when combined with perfect preservation and verified mint documentation. Another possibility lies in a dramatic double die obverse or reverse error, where the die used to strike the coin received multiple misaligned impressions during its creation, resulting in strong doubling on Lincoln's portrait, the date, or inscriptions like "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." And while minor doubling exists on many coins, a bold, fully separated double die with clear notching and spread would elevate the coin into elite territory, especially if it were previously unknown and surfaced decades later in pristine condition, because the discovery of a new major variety often sends shockwaves through the numismatic community, rewriting price guides and igniting bidding wars among top collectors and institutions. The $540 million valuation becomes even more conceivable when considering the theoretical existence of a 1976 penny struck with a mule error, meaning it bears mismatched obverse and reverse designs never intended to be paired together, such as a Lincoln cent obverse combined with a completely different reverse, possibly even from a bicentennial denomination or a foreign coin, an error so extreme that it challenges belief. Yet history has proven that mules do exist, and when authenticated, they instantly become legendary, commanding prices that reflect not just rarity but the narrative shock value they bring to the hobby. Adding another layer of intrigue is the possibility of a no-mint mark error where a coin expected to bear a specific mint mark instead appears without one due to die polishing, grease fill, or an incorrectly prepared die, and while some no-mint mark cents are common, a situation where the absence contradicts known minting practices for that year and location could create a numismatic paradox, drawing intense scholarly attention and escalating its value beyond traditional metrics. The metal composition of the 1976 penny also opens doors to extraordinary speculation, because during the 1970s, the U.S. Mint experimented with alternative materials due to rising copper costs, and if a 1976 Lincoln cent were struck on an experimental alloy never released to the public, or on a transitional bronze-aluminum planchet intended for testing only, its existence would represent a physical piece of hidden mint history, a forbidden survivor that slipped into circulation against all odds, and collectors place immense value on coins that reveal secrets rather than merely displaying errors. Condition plays a decisive role in this valuation narrative as well, because a coin graded at the highest mint state levels, free from wear, corrosion, or handling marks, with original luster blazing across its surfaces, becomes exponentially rarer with each grade point. And when a once-in-a-generation error is combined with a perfect or near-perfect grade, the result is a multiplier effect that can push theoretical values into the hundreds of millions, especially when elite collectors view the coin not merely as an acquisition but as a crown jewel that defines an entire collection or legacy. Historical context further fuels the mystique, because 1976 represents a symbolic milestone in American identity, and any coin from that year carrying a dramatic error becomes more than metal. It becomes a flawed artifact from a celebratory moment, a reminder that even during national pride and precision, human and mechanical imperfection persisted, and collectors are often drawn to these contradictions, paying premiums for coins that tell complex stories rather than simple ones. There is also the possibility of a dramatic strike-through error, where foreign material such as cloth, wire, grease, or metal fragments interfered with the striking process, leaving deep, unusual impressions that permanently altered the coin's design. And while minor strike-throughs are relatively accessible, a large, visually arresting example that obscures major design elements while remaining fully intact could stand alone as a unique specimen, especially if the material itself can be identified and traced to mint operations of the era. Another avenue of rarity lies in a broad strike combined with an off-center strike, where the coin was struck outside the retaining collar and misaligned with the dies, causing the design to spread unnaturally and the rim to disappear. And if such an error also preserved the full date and portrait, it would be far more desirable than typical off-center coins, because collectors value errors that maintain identity while displaying chaos. Die cracks, cuds, and retained breaks also contribute to this $540 million narrative when taken to extreme levels, because a massive die failure that dramatically reshaped Lincoln's profile or the coin's fields would represent a frozen moment of industrial collapse. And if such a coin were the final strike before the die shattered, its significance would be unparalleled, a last impression captured in copper. The role of provenance cannot be overstated either, because if a 1976 Lincoln penny with extraordinary errors were traced back to a former mint employee, an old estate, or a sealed government source, the documented history would legitimize its story and protect it from skepticism, and in high-end numismatics, story and proof often command as much value as the object itself. Market psychology also plays a powerful role in assigning astronomical values, because when ultra-wealthy collectors compete for a singular object with no comparable examples, price becomes less about metal and more about exclusivity, prestige, and control, and in such environments, bidding can escalate far beyond traditional logic, especially if museums, private foundations, or national collections become involved. The idea of a $540 million 1976 Lincoln penny also rests on the concept of convergence, where multiple major errors appear on a single coin rather than separately, such as a wrong planchet strike combined with a double die and an off-center alignment, a combination so unlikely that it borders on statistical impossibility. Yet it is precisely this impossibility that fuels legendary valuations, because collectors chase what should not exist. Authentication would be critical in such a scenario, involving metallurgical testing, die analysis, and historical research conducted by the most respected grading services and independent experts, and once confirmed, the coin would immediately transcend price guides, entering a realm where it is discussed in terms of cultural significance rather than market comps. The public fascination with hidden treasure further amplifies the value narrative, because the idea that a penny pulled from circulation could be worth hundreds of millions resonates deeply, inspiring media attention, documentaries, and viral stories, all of which feed demand and perception, in the collectibles world, can be as powerful as rarity itself. Even the survival factor adds weight to the story because pennies are often overlooked, abused, or discarded, and the mere survival of an extreme error from 1976 into the modern era, especially in pristine condition, defies expectations, making the coin feel almost chosen by fate. In the end, the hypothetical $540 million valuation of a 1976 Lincoln penny is not anchored to a single flaw but to an extraordinary constellation of errors, mistakes, historical context, condition, provenance, and human desire, all merging into one object that challenges our assumptions about value, reminding us that worth is not always dictated by denomination or intention but by rarity. Story. Next, 1989, D. Lincoln Penny. Today we are diving into one of the most fascinating, controversial, and imagination-stirring stories in the world of modern coin collecting. A story that has captured the attention of collectors, casual pocket change hunters, and dreamers alike. And that is the astonishing claim surrounding the 1989 D. Lincoln Penny, a seemingly ordinary copper-coated zinc cent that, under the right circumstances and with the right combination of errors, mistakes, and minting anomalies, has been rumored, speculated, and endlessly discussed as being worth as much as $541 million, a figure so enormous that it immediately raises eyebrows and fuels curiosity, yet also invites deeper exploration into how such values are even imagined, where the idea comes from, and what specific mint errors and rare possibilities could theoretically push a humble 1-cent coin into the realm of unimaginable worth. Because when people hear that a penny from 1989 with a D mint mark could be worth more than skyscrapers, private jets, or entire companies, they naturally want to know how that could possibly be true. And that is exactly what we are unpacking today in a clear, engaging, and story-driven way that keeps you thinking long after the video ends. The 1989 D. Lincoln Penny was struck at the Denver Mint during a period of massive production, when billions of cents were being made each year to meet everyday circulation demands. And on the surface this coin appears extremely common, with countless examples still sitting in jars, drawers, and old coffee cans across the country. Yet numismatics has always taught us that rarity is not only about how many coins were made, but about how many coins were made wrong, how wrong they were made, and how unique those mistakes turned out to be, because errors transform ordinary objects into singular artifacts, and it is within this transformation that the extraordinary valuation claims surrounding the 1989 D penny are born. To understand why such a staggering number like $541 million is even mentioned in discussions, we need to explore the nature of mint errors in depth, because not all errors are created equal, and most mistakes only add modest value, while a microscopic few, especially those combining multiple rare characteristics, can theoretically become priceless due to their uniqueness, historical significance, and impossibility of duplication. One of the most talked about possibilities with the 1989 D penny is the concept of a wrong planchet error, where the coin is struck on a blank intended for a completely different denomination or metal composition, such as a planchet meant for a dime, a foreign coin, or even an experimental alloy that was never supposed to enter circulation, and if a genuine, authenticated 1989 D Lincoln cent were discovered struck on a planchet of an entirely different metal, especially one not officially recorded for that year, the numismatic shockwave would be enormous, because such an error would not just be rare, it would challenge existing mint records and force experts to rewrite what they thought they knew about that production period. Another highly discussed error is the transitional composition mistake, because 1989 sits within the modern era of copper-plated zinc cents, yet the U.S. Mint has a history of transitional errors where old and new compositions accidentally overlap, and while this is more famously associated with years like 1982 or earlier copper transitions, the hypothetical discovery of an undocumented transitional metal error in 1989, such as a penny struck on a solid copper planchet or a non-standard alloy, never released to the public, would instantly elevate the coin into legendary status, because it would represent a manufacturing anomaly that should not exist according to official policy. Then there is the possibility of a dramatic double die error, where the coin's design elements appear doubled due to misalignment during the die creation process. And while minor doubling is relatively common and often misunderstood, a true, bold, hub-doubled die affecting multiple areas of the coin, such as Lincoln's portrait, the date, the mint mark placement, and the inscriptions, could make an already scarce error exponentially more desirable, especially if the doubling is strong, unmistakable, and paired with other errors on the same coin. Another layer of intrigue comes from off-metal strikes combined with brockage or multiple strike errors, scenarios in which a coin is struck more than once or with another coin stuck to the die, creating mirrored or ink-use impressions that defy normal expectations, and when such errors happen together on a single piece, the result can be so visually dramatic and mechanically complex that collectors view the coin not just as currency, but as a physical record of chaos inside the minting process, frozen in metal. The Denver Mint mark itself adds another dimension, because certain error types are far less frequently documented from Denver compared to Philadelphia in some years, and when a rare error emerges from a mint not commonly associated with that mistake, it increases demand due to its unexpected origin, reinforcing the idea that this was not part of a known pattern but a true anomaly. Some theories go even further, discussing the hypothetical existence of mule errors involving the 1989 D penny, where the obverse and reverse dies are mismatched, possibly pairing a Lincoln obverse with a reverse design from a completely different series or era. And while such errors are exceedingly rare and heavily scrutinized, confirmed mule coins have historically sold for enormous sums because they represent a breakdown in quality control that should never have passed inspection. The valuation narrative escalates when people begin to combine these possibilities into a single, almost mythical scenario. Imagining a one-of-a-kind 1989 D penny that is struck on the wrong metal, shows a bold double die, carries a dramatic off-center or multiple strike, and exhibits die clashes or other die state anomalies, all while remaining in pristine, uncirculated condition with minimal post-mint damage, because in numismatics, condition amplifies rarity, and rarity amplifies value, creating a feedback loop where the best example of the rarest mistake becomes essentially priceless. The figure of $541 million often enters the conversation not as a realized auction result, but as a speculative, theoretical valuation used to illustrate how a coin that is truly unique, historically disruptive, and impossible to replicate could command any price a buyer is willing to pay, especially if that buyer is a billionaire collector, a museum seeking global attention, or a private institution aiming to own the ultimate symbol of minting error history. It is important to understand that in such cases, value is not strictly determined by metal content or face value, but by narrative, documentation, authentication, and the emotional pull of owning something that exists outside the rules, because collectors do not just buy coins, they buy stories, mysteries, and proof that even the most controlled industrial systems can produce miracles by accident. The 1989 D penny story also thrives because of its accessibility, since millions of people can still realistically search for one in circulation, making it a modern treasure hunt that feels attainable, unlike ancient gold coins locked away in museums. And this sense of possibility keeps the legend alive, as every handful of change carries the faint hope of discovery. At the same time, the discussion serves as a reminder of how critical authentication and expert evaluation are, because extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence, and without certification from reputable grading services, even the most unusual-looking coin remains just a curiosity rather than a life-changing find. The mythos surrounding the 1989 D Lincoln penny worth $541 million ultimately reflects the human fascination with errors, the idea that perfection is boring but mistakes are valuable, and that within systems designed for uniformity, uniqueness can emerge unexpectedly, turning something overlooked into something legendary. Whether or not such a coin has ever truly existed, the possibility alone has inspired countless collectors to learn about minting processes, error classification, and the subtle differences that separate common sense from extraordinary artifacts, and that educational impact has real value regardless of auction results. As you go through your own coins, examining dates, mint marks, surfaces, weights, and sounds, you are participating in a tradition that blends history, science, and hope, because every coin tells a story, and once in a very long while, a story becomes so compelling that people attach numbers to it that seem impossible, numbers like $541 million, not because the coin is magical, but because it represents the ultimate convergence of rarity, error, timing, and imagination, and that is why. The 1989 D Lincoln penny continues to spark debate, excitement, skepticism, and dreams, proving that even in the smallest denomination, the biggest stories can still be found if you know where to look and understand what makes a mistake more valuable than perfection. Next, 2017 P. Lincoln penny. Today, as we dive into a story that sounds unbelievable at first but becomes more fascinating with every detail, because today we are exploring the incredible tale of a 2017 P. Lincoln penny that, due to a remarkable combination of rare mint errors, unusual production mistakes, and extraordinary possibilities surrounding its origin, has been whispered about in collector circles as a coin that could command an astonishing valuation of $542 million, a number that immediately grabs attention and invites curiosity. And as we begin this journey together, imagine the countless pennies that pass through your hands every year, overlooked and underestimated, yet hiding the potential to become legendary pieces of numismatic history when the right conditions align. The 2017 P. Lincoln penny was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, a facility known for producing coins without a mint mark in modern times, and under normal circumstances this coin would be worth exactly 1 cent. Made of a zinc core with a copper plating, released into circulation by the billions, and intended to be used, spent, scratched, and eventually forgotten. However, the extraordinary value attributed to this specific penny comes from a convergence of errors and anomalies that transform it from an ordinary object into a once-in-a-generation treasure. One of the most significant factors contributing to its staggering potential value is the possibility of a dramatic off-metal error, where the penny may have been struck on a planchet intended for an entirely different denomination or composition, such as a copper-nickel alloy, a silver-based experimental blank, or even a transitional metal leftover from a different production run, and if metallurgical testing were to confirm that a 2017 penny was struck on a non-standard planchet never meant for cents, the numismatic world would immediately recognize it as a monumental discovery, because such errors are exceptionally rare in the modern era due to strict quality controls. Adding to this intrigue is the speculation of a double die obverse combined with extreme die deterioration, a combination that could produce dramatic doubling on Lincoln's portrait, the date, and inscriptions like "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," with thickened letters, visible separation lines, and ghost-like secondary impressions that appear almost three-dimensional under magnification, and when this kind of doubling is not caused by machine doubling but by a true hub doubling error, it becomes one of the most sought-after varieties in U.S. coinage. The story becomes even more compelling when collectors consider the possibility of a triple strike or multiple strike error, where the coin may have been struck more than once while misaligned between strikes, creating overlapping images of Lincoln's face, distorted rims, crescent-shaped overlaps, and fragmented lettering that tells a chaotic story of malfunctioning machinery inside the mint. And when such dramatic visual errors occur on a modern coin like the 2017 penny, their rarity increases exponentially. Another layer of fascination comes from the potential presence of a retained cud or massive die break, where a portion of the die cracked and displaced metal onto the coin's surface, forming raised, irregular blobs that interrupt the design and create a sculptural appearance. And when these die breaks are unusually large or appear in symbolic locations, such as across Lincoln's face or intersecting the date, they can ignite intense interest and speculation among high-end collectors. The $542 million valuation narrative grows even stronger when the possibility of a wrong-year die pairing is introduced, such as a 2017 obverse paired with a reverse die intended for a different year or an experimental reverse design never released to the public, because such mismatches would suggest a profound procedural failure at the mint, something almost unheard of in the modern production environment. Beyond visible errors, there is also the tantalizing possibility of a micro-engraved anomaly or hidden diagnostic feature, such as unintended tooling marks, clash remnants, or die polish lines that form recognizable shapes or patterns, which collectors sometimes interpret as symbolic or historically significant, adding a layer of mystique that elevates the coin beyond its physical attributes. The condition of the coin also plays a critical role in its theoretical valuation, because a 2017 penny exhibiting these errors in pristine, uncirculated, or proof-like condition would defy expectations, suggesting it somehow escaped the mint without entering heavy circulation. And when extreme errors meet exceptional preservation, the resulting synergy can drive values into uncharted territory. Market psychology further amplifies this phenomenon, because once a coin is labeled as unique or one-of-a-kind, especially in the context of modern U.S. coinage, collectors, investors, and institutions may compete fiercely for ownership, not only for the coin itself but for the prestige, publicity, and historical significance attached to it. Stories of legendary coins, such as the 1943 copper cent or the 1955 double die penny, loom large in numismatic culture. And when a modern penny like the 2017 is proposed as a successor to these icons, speculation can escalate rapidly, sometimes reaching headline-grabbing figures that reflect not just intrinsic value but cultural impact. The $542 million figure is often discussed as a hypothetical peak valuation under perfect circumstances, where authentication by top grading services confirms every extraordinary claim, metallurgical analysis validates the off-metal composition, provenance traces the coin's path from the mint to discovery, and a high-profile auction ignites a bidding war among elite collectors and museums, each seeking to secure a tangible piece of modern monetary mythology. It is also important to consider the narrative power of discovery, because coins found unexpectedly in pocket change or old jars resonate deeply with the public, reinforcing the idea that hidden treasures still exist in everyday life. And when a 2017 penny is rumored to possess such jaw-dropping potential, it encourages countless people to examine their change more carefully, fueling a renewed interest in numismatics. The errors attributed to this coin are not merely mechanical flaws. They represent moments where human systems, technology, and chance intersected in unpredictable ways, leaving behind a physical record of imperfection that collectors cherish precisely because it defies uniformity. As discussions continue, some experts emphasize that even if the full $542 million valuation remains speculative, the presence of multiple confirmed errors on a single modern penny could still place its value far beyond traditional expectations, reaching millions or tens of millions under the right conditions, and that alone underscores the transformative power of mint mistakes. The legend of the 2017 Lincoln penny also highlights the evolving nature of collecting in the digital age, where images, videos, and online forums can rapidly elevate a coin from obscurity to fame, creating global awareness almost overnight. And when combined with compelling visuals and credible documentation, interest can snowball into something extraordinary. Ultimately, this story is not just about a penny or a price tag. It is about curiosity, patience, and the willingness to look closely at the ordinary, because history often hides in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice the subtle clues that reveal something remarkable. As you continue watching and exploring the world of rare coins, remember that every piece of change carries a story, and while most will remain humble tokens of daily commerce, a rare few, like the legendary 2017 Lincoln penny discussed today, remind us that even the smallest objects can carry the weight of immense possibility, wonder, and value beyond imagination. Last 2011 Lincoln penny. Today, because what you are about to hear sounds unbelievable, almost impossible, yet it is exactly the kind of story that keeps collectors, treasure hunters, and everyday viewers glued to their screens. And today we are diving deep into the astonishing legend of the 2011 Lincoln penny, a simple 1-cent coin that, under the right circumstances, has been whispered about as carrying a jaw-dropping potential value of up to $543 million due to a combination of rare errors, extraordinary minting, mistakes, historical timing, and theoretical possibilities that ignite the imagination of numismatists around the world. And as we begin, imagine holding a small copper-colored coin in your hand, something you may have overlooked or spent without a second thought. Yet hidden within its metal, its strike, its composition, and its microscopic details could be the factors that transform it from pocket change into one of the most valuable objects on Earth. The 2011 Lincoln penny was produced during a modern era of coinage when billions of cents were struck. Yet paradoxically, it is precisely this mass production that creates the environment where rare and dramatic mistakes can occur, and those mistakes, when layered together in extraordinary combinations, open the door to values that go far beyond ordinary auction records, moving instead into the realm of theoretical, conditional, and once-in-a-generation valuations. To understand why a 2011 penny could even be discussed in the same breath as hundreds of millions of dollars, we must first consider the complexity of the minting process itself, because every Lincoln cent begins as a blank planchet, cut from metal strips of zinc coated with copper, fed at high speed into presses that strike thousands of coins per minute, and while this process is designed for consistency, it is not immune to human oversight, mechanical fatigue, calibration errors, or transitional anomalies that occur when dies are changed, materials are adjusted, or quality control briefly falters. One of the most significant errors that collectors dream of finding on a 2011 penny is the presence of a wrong planchet error, where the coin is struck on a metal intended for an entirely different denomination or even a foreign coin. And if a 2011 Lincoln cent were struck on a bronze planchet from an earlier era, or on a silver or experimental alloy planchet never meant for circulation, the value would already skyrocket into the realm of high 6 or 7 figures. Yet when collectors speculate about values reaching $543 million, they are envisioning not just one error, but a cascade of compounding anomalies that make the coin unique among all others. Another crucial factor is the possibility of a dramatic double die error, where the design is impressed onto the die more than once at slightly different angles, resulting in noticeable doubling on inscriptions like "Liberty," "In God We Trust," or the date itself. And while double dies are known and collected, a 2011 penny with extreme, Highly visible doubling combined with other errors would elevate it into legendary status, especially if the doubling affected both obverse and reverse in a way never documented before. Beyond doubling, there is the phenomenon of off-metal strikes and transitional compositions, which fuels much of the excitement surrounding modern pennies, because 2011 sits within a period where the United States Mint had already transitioned away from solid copper cents, yet rumors, theories, and rare discoveries keep alive the possibility that leftover copper planchets, experimental alloys, or improperly mixed metal batches could have found their way into production, and a genuine 2011 penny, struck on a solid copper planchet verified through metallurgical testing, would instantly rewrite the record books. Die errors further expand the range of possibilities, because a cracked die, shattered die, or retained cud can create dramatic raised areas, missing design elements or distorted portraits. And when such errors are severe, visually striking, and confirmed as mint-made rather than post-mint damage, collectors compete fiercely to own them. But again, the $543 million figure enters the conversation only when imagining a coin that combines extreme die damage with other rarities, forming a one-of-a-kind specimen that cannot be replicated or compared. Mint mark anomalies also play a role in the speculative valuation, because a 2011 penny bearing an incorrect mint mark, a doubled mint mark, or a mint mark that should not exist for that year or location would immediately raise red flags and interest. And if such an anomaly were proven authentic and linked to a documented breakdown in minting protocol, its historical importance would amplify its value far beyond its physical size. Another layer of intrigue lies in the possibility of a mule error, where the obverse of one coin is paired with the reverse of another, and while mules are rare, they are among the most celebrated mint mistakes, and a 2011 Lincoln cent struck with a mismatched reverse from a different denomination or an unissued design would instantly become a centerpiece of numismatic history, potentially valued not just for its rarity but for what it reveals about the mint's internal processes. Condition, too, cannot be overstated, because a coin with all these errors would need to survive in pristine, uncirculated, or even proof-like condition to command astronomical figures. And this is where the story becomes even more improbable, because circulation is harsh, yet sometimes coins are pulled immediately from mint bags, saved unknowingly, or preserved by chance, allowing a perfect storm of rarity and preservation to occur. Historical context adds another dimension, because the Lincoln cent is one of the most iconic coins in American history, featuring a beloved president whose image has endured for over a century, and any coin that significantly deviates from the standard design becomes a talking point not just among collectors but among historians, economists, and the general public, especially in an era where interest in tangible assets and alternative investments continues to grow. Media attention, public fascination, and the psychology of scarcity also play critical roles in driving speculative valuations, because when a coin is positioned as unique, unprecedented, and symbolic of a flaw in an otherwise precise system, it captures the imagination, and wealthy collectors, museums, and institutions may compete not just to own it, but to be associated with its story. The idea of a $543 million penny also draws from comparisons to other legendary coins, such as the 1933 Double Eagle or the 1913 Liberty Head Nickel, whose value soared not merely because of metal content or age, but because of legal battles, limited numbers, and captivating narratives. And in this sense, a 2011 penny with unmatched errors could follow a similar trajectory, where its worth is defined as much by myth and demand as by measurable factors. Authentication would be absolutely critical, requiring analysis by top grading services, metallurgists, and mint experts, because the higher the claimed value, the greater the scrutiny, and only a coin that withstands every test, every challenge, and every skeptical eye could ever be considered for such a staggering figure. The market itself would shape the final valuation, because while $543 million may sound fantastical, it represents a theoretical ceiling driven by the idea of ultimate rarity, where one object stands alone, and in markets driven by passion and prestige, ceilings are often tested and sometimes shattered. The possibilities surrounding the 2011 Lincoln penny remind us that even in a world dominated by digital currency and electronic transactions, small physical objects can still hold immense power, not only monetary but cultural and emotional, and they serve as reminders that perfection is elusive, even in highly controlled systems, and that mistakes, when rare enough, can become treasures. As you go about your day, checking your change or sorting through old jars of coins, remember that history, error, and chance can intersect in the most unexpected ways. And while the odds are astronomically small, the story of the 2011 Lincoln penny valued at $543 million exists to inspire curiosity, attention to detail, and the belief that extraordinary value can hide in ordinary places. And that is what makes coin collecting, and stories like this one, endlessly fascinating because somewhere, perhaps forgotten in a drawer or tucked away in a collection, a tiny copper-colored coin could be waiting to change someone's life forever.